Okay, so for this video, what we're going to do is talk a little bit about Linux and writing scripts. So it's a bit of a big topic, um, and we're going to try to run through this quickly, and but also provide enough background so that people can get their feet wet. First thing to do is we'll bring up a terminal. So this is the Bash terminal, and I have the Wikipedia here with Bash brought up. It stands for the Born Again shell. The Bash is the default for a lot of Linux distributions, including Ubuntu, Fedora, and Linux Mint, and all these derivatives. When you're inside the shell, it shows you sort of where you are. So this tilde means that we're in the working directory or the home directory of this user, open source test. So you can see here, open source at the host name of the computer. And from here, we can do things like list what the contents of this directory are. So doing ls is list. We can change directories. So I can change the desktop. I can see what's inside the desktop. I can go back by doing cd dot dot, cd space dot dot, goes back up one directory. If you wanted to just print out where we are, like if we weren't sure by that tilde, we could do print working directory, home/test. This is pretty useful because if you're going cd desktop, and then you're poking around, then you're back, and then you're going to maybe cd downloads, you might get confused if this wasn't readily available. So pwd, cd back, or cd dot dot to go back. And you can sort of see everything that's in the file system. If you wanted to see hidden files, the permissions of files, the space used by files, the file owner, we can do ls-al. This is going to show us the more detailed contents. So you can see there's lots of hidden files. Anything with a dot in front of it is a hidden file. And you can also see the owner. This first one is the owner, and then the group that owns the file, or the directory or the file is a member of which group. What the group would be is if you were sharing this out, like particularly if you're using a network attached storage, a NAS, and we cover this a little bit in the FreeNAS tutorial. The server, the introduction of servers, the permissions sort of allow you to have more users. So if you had multiple users of this group, then all those users would be able to access that. That would be a bad idea for .ssh, but hopefully you get the idea. In the front here, you can see exactly how the permissions are set, and the permissions is going to be important when we talk about the scripting. So let's get into that. Okay, Control C here for now. So we'll do ls-al. Here we have a couple of simple scripts. Actually, I'm going to remove a couple of them. So if you do rm, that's the remove command. Okay, so now they're gone. See, they're gone. What we're going to do is, first I'll just make a script. So we're going to open a text editor called Nano. We're going to create this simple.sh. Okay, in here, minimize this. In here, we're going to start a simple bash script. And we're going to let the terminal know that it's a bash script first by doing this pound exclamation point bin bash. Okay, so that's going to let the terminal know, okay, this is a bash script. So we set that up front. Then we're just going to write a simple hello world. So we can do echo, or we could also do print f. I'm just going to type echo. Echo, what that does at the command line level, you can see here, hello world. It just prints hello world. And we're going to just set a script that's going to do the exact same thing. We're going to add brackets. We're going to say hello world. And we're going to save it. So Control X. Do you want to save? We say yes. And we're going to, what do you file name to be? Simple.sh. That looks good. We're going to press enter. Now we're going to ls-al, and we're going to see what the permissions are. So we have read, write, read, write, read. So we have this simple.sh. Okay. Now let's try to run it. So if you want to run a script, or you want to run a program from the terminal, but it's not, a default command. It's not something that's been set as a default command yet. You press this period slash. That tells you I want to run something in this directory. Okay, the period slash tells you this directory. Simple.sh. Okay, I want to run this. Whoops, permission denied. Okay, why is that? Well, because you can see here we have this read write, but we don't have the execute. So we don't have the permission to execute that. So we need to change that. So first we need executive permissions. So we need sudo chmod, and we're just going to do 755. Okay, we're just going to change this to something that can be executed. It can be executed and modified by the user, that's 7. It can be read from or executed, that's 5. And it can be read to or executed from, that's 5 as well. Okay, so we'll do this. Now we're going to do lsal. You see, okay, now we can read and write to it if we're the owner and execute it. We can read or execute if we're a member of the group, and we can read and execute if we're a guest, okay, or other. So now let's try to run it again. Simple.sh. Oops, I made a mistake. Let's check that. I think I know what it is too. Added an extra slash. So let's try to run that again. There we go. So now it prints the hello world. So again, it's important to check your code properly before running. But luckily it wasn't a harmful command. So that's essentially how you start a script. Now we're going to run something which is a little bit more complicated, which is a time converter. What this script does, this is essentially something that I made because I find it useful. It lets me see what the hours are in different countries, in different places around the world, given the input. So it finds out where I am in the world based on the date command. I'll show that in a sec. And then it takes the time that I'm giving it. So if it's like 3 p.m. my time, what time is it in the rest of the world? And then it shows you, okay, so my time in Greenwich Mean Time would be 7 a.m. In Europe, that would be 8 a.m. In the UK, it would be 7 a.m. In the US, it would be 2 a.m. In the west coast of the US, it would actually be 11 p.m. the previous day. In Sydney, it would be 6 p.m. because Sydney's ahead of me. In Asia CST, where I'm based, it's 3 p.m. And then the time in New Delhi would be 12:30 p.m. So let's sort of get into the code and sort of see how this works. Now, because I wanted something that would be super quick, so I could just put in a number, and it spews an output. So there's no definition of AM or PM, and I wanted everything in base 12. So you have to kind of be a little bit aware of where you are, but beyond that, it should work. So if we look at the code here, again, we have this shebang. So the pound exclamation point bin bash, that we're telling that this is a bash script. Anything with a pound sign in front, that's for comments. So we have some comments of what this script does. We give it variables, and it's important in bash because it doesn't have brackets, similar to Python, that you get the spacing right. So no spaces between the variable name, the equal sign, and then what it is. You got to keep that nice and tight. So we have a time, we have this month. So we're just setting these as integer variables, essentially. Then we're saying, where are we? So we're creating a variable, and we're assigning it this value. when you use the $sign, the $sign is essentially saying that I want the value of some sort of input. So if we use $sign and then these brackets over here, then it gives us the value of this command. So if you want to see what that command actually looks like, just paste that in the terminal. And essentially what that's doing is it's using the date command, which normally looks like this, but the date command has lots of options. If you do date help, there's all sorts of things that you can do with the date command. That's how I made this script. So what it's doing is it's telling me, okay, I am GMT plus 08. Okay, so where are we? Okay, so that says it runs this command to see where we are, so anywhere in the world. Then we start stripping some of the values from this variable value. So if we use this $sign and we use these brackets, we can strip the second, so space number 1 because it starts at 0. We strip the second and the third number, so 1 and 2. So in this plus 8 over here, the second and the third values would be 0 and 8. So we put that as here we are. And then we have this east-west variable. So this is going to tell us whether we're on the east of Greenwich Mean Time or we're on the west of Greenwich Mean Time. So if we're plus 08, we're 8 hours ahead of GMT. If we're minus 08, we'd be 8 hours behind GMT. So we're going to figure out if we're ahead or behind. So we're going to get the first variable up to the second. Okay. So this is going to give us a plus or minus. Then what we're going to do is, for some regions, if it's plus a 0, if we want to use this number as a integer, having a 0 in front of it sort of flubs it up. The bash will still think that this is still a string. So essentially what this is doing is just stripping it. So we're stripping that 0 from in front of it in case there is a 0. If there's not a 0, for example, if you're in Australia and you're plus 11 or plus 10, then you still want that 10 and that 11. So this is only stripping if there's a 0 in front so that bash can understand it is a number. Then we're requesting the input. So this is where, again, this is this prompt here. Please enter the hour base 12 to convert. So we're requesting this. And then to take input from the terminal, you use this read option. You read local time. So what that's going to do is it's going to assign a variable local time, and that's going to end up being the value of whatever the person prompts to bash. Okay. Now we're going to start going through and creating some more logic. So here you see if this value is equal to 0, what we're going to do here is say if the variable that we just stripped out, east-west, is positive, then time that we assigned over here, we're going to say time is going to be local time, what the user just gave into the system, minus where we are. So essentially what this is going to do here is this section of code converts to the GMT standard. So if the east-west is positive, we want the local time minus GMT. We want to take the local time minus GMT. And the reason we're doing that is because that's going to convert our value directly into what the appropriate time is in Greenwich Mean Time. So if it's like 11 a.m. in Japan, that's going to be 11 hours ahead of, or not 11 hours ahead, it's going to be 9 hours ahead of GMT. So 11 a.m. Japan should theoretically be 2 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, right? So, but if we're going the other way, if we're minus 11, or we're based in the Western Hemisphere, so if we're based in Mexico or Canada or wherever, then we're going to have to add that time back to get the Greenwich Mean Time. So that's what this is doing. Then we're going to ensure it's base 12 value, so we don't want negative numbers. We don't want, because we're doing 3 p.m., then -8, so it ends up becoming -5. So we need to get rid of the negative numbers. And what we're doing is, if time, the value of time, again, dollar is the value of it, less than, so this dash LT stands for less than in bash. If it's less than 0, then we just add 12 to it. Okay, so that's going to make it everything base 12. But if it's greater than 12, so it ended up being 13 o'clock or 14 o'clock, obviously that would be permissible if it was base 24, but we're not doing base 24, we're just doing base 12 in this. So if it's greater than 12, then we're going to subtract 12 from it. Okay, that keeps everything in base 12. And then we're printing out your time in GMT is time. So again, if we just add something here, your time in GMT is 9. So this is being printed out from here. Now we're going to convert this to the local times. Okay, so when I first made this script, it was daylight savings time. So it just, from Greenwich Mean Time, we're just converting everything again. So we do time plus 2, indicate time plus 1. And you'll notice that every time you do arithmetic in bash, you have a $, and then two brackets over here. Okay, and that's the way to do math. So you have to take do the math value, and then you take the value of that. Essentially, is the logic, as I understand. So you have these 2 brackets every time you want to do arithmetic. If you're just getting the value of something, you don't necessarily need 2 brackets, but if you want to modify that value, then you do need 2. And then, so we'll just go through, and then we're applying the what the deltas are at that given time. Then, this is a little bit tricky, but essentially what this is doing is trying to calculate whether or not we need to adjust the standard time from daylight savings time. And it's really, I really wish the whole world just didn't have daylight savings time, but it does, so we need to deal with it. So what this is doing is based on the week, because each region goes to standard time or daylight savings time at a different time. So if we're in Australia, I think it's like the first week of October, and then it goes all the way until the first week of March is their daylight savings time. So this is essentially trying to get the week number. And again, if we do date plus %u, show that here. It shows you what the week number of the year is. So here this sort of gives us a way to try for about 90+% of the time be accurate with the daylight savings time. So if it should be daylight savings time in Sydney, remember they're in the southern hemisphere, so Sydney +1, spring ahead. If this is the U.S., so the times for U.S. East and U.S. West Coast, greater than or equal to 44, which should be, I think, the first week of November, and then all the way until, I think it's like the second week of March. Then this would be standard time, so we fall back, so -1. And then for Europe and UK, also the same. So this isn't 100% accurate because there could be some countries which are the same time zone some of the time, but not all the time, because maybe they don't have daylight savings time. Asia, China Standard Time, most countries in China Standard Time don't have daylight savings time, but some do. So please pay attention to that if you are in one of those countries. And then this last string of text is, again, when we're doing the initial conversion for GMT, we had to take into account that we could have negative numbers or we could have positive numbers. So what I do is do the conversion, check to see if we need to adjust for standard time or daylight savings time. And then this again is, if we're less than 0, we're adding 12 again. And some of these could be more likely to get greater than 12 because we're adding values to it, we're adding a number rather than subtracting. So if it's greater than 12, then we're bringing it back down to a base 12. Once all of that's calculated, then we're going to print the output. And rather than using echo in this line, we're using printf because that allows me to do the slash new line here. So /n or \n stands for new line in most programming languages. The same is true with bash. So then that prints the output of all of this so that we can get this output over here. So that's essentially the code. That's essentially the concepts. Again, you first write a script, you need to make sure that you, in addition to writing the script in order to run it, you need to change it or change the permissions. And if you wanted to make this as like a universal script, so if I wanted this to run everywhere, so if I just opened a new terminal and do time converter, my terminal doesn't know about that command. If you wanted to make a custom command, what you have to do is copy, so CP stands for copy, time converter .sh, is verify cd.local share. Actually, it's cd/user bin. That should work. So you can do sudo to user bin. So I'm going to copy this file into /user bin. Now, because /user bin is not in my home directory, so I need to have executive permissions. So I call in sudo, run that, enter my password. And now, unless I screw something up, use the time converter. Yes, time converter.sh, and the program's available for anywhere in the terminal. So if I had everything closed, and the whole reason I went through all this trouble making this big long script, and I wanted to schedule a meeting with someone, all I can do, time converter, and I can quickly say, okay, if I need to arrange a meeting with someone in the UK at 5 p.m. my time, it would be 10 a.m. their time. So that way I can have an idea of whether or not it's a reasonable time to schedule a meeting with someone. So that's essentially the script. I figured I'd create a video about it just to go through some of the steps. I hope it's helpful, and again, in the blog I'll put in a whole bunch more links, including a link to a very good book from linuxcommand.org, the Linux Command Line by William Schatz, which I read through and used that to sort of get my feet wet and start learning how to write bash cells. Really good book, so I just wanted to share that, and I hope it's helpful. So thank you very much.